Oh my god.
Hey, what's up, folks? It's me, Tom F. Finally in my own place of residence. I moved here February 6th. Also, Krett's here too. I moved here February 6th. And, well, today's my first day with a real place. So,
And look, it's just like home. You've got your sports.
and we got my sports. Yeah, man, I'm here. I'm back in, well, not back, but I've got my own place. There's a whole bunch. It looks all set up. I've got my computer and everything perfect, and then a bunch of stuff just there. So
I've seen that part of his house. It is stuff.
There's more stuff now.
yeah. But how you been? It's been 2 weeks, and I haven't talked to you. You never write, never call. I was very worried.
Yeah, I was actually pretty excited not to talk to you. I bribed Clumsy Death and Wolfie to fill in for the past 2 weeks because nobody really wants to talk to you, Krett.
Yeah, I know. It's actually really convenient for me because I don't want to talk to anyone either, so it works out great.
It did work out pretty good, but I'm back because those past 2 weeks I was, I just couldn't get here, but now I'm here, so we're back. And what I have been dialed into though is the SPL, straight up. Have you paid attention? I mean, no. I know, because I've been into the SPL, I've been watching it, I've been paying attention. It's been a lot of fun. I know that you're focused on the Challenger Cup, though.
That's right, and we're winning the shit out of the Challenger Cup. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Have you seen Zapman's streams? Because he always says Challenger level plays, and it's hilarious. It's really good.
Yep. Yeah. No. I mean, it takes a certain level of commitment to not be the best. So, congratulations, Krett.
I'm very committed to it. Something I strive for.
But so anyway, if you guys are new to the show, I know there's a lot of new viewers out there. We're leeching off a Smite game a little bit. If you guys are new to the show, basically, I'm Tom, or F. as they call me on the internet. I am.
Can I call you Tom?
You can't. I do broadcasting for the Smite Pro League and other stuff. You know, I work for Hi-Rez and I do like esports stuff. Krett over here has broadcasted for a while. So go ahead and you broadcast and you coach.
Hi, my name is Krett. I like long walks on the beach and unicorns.
How do I mute him?
I like long walks on the beach and unicorns. I'm currently the coach for Team Eager playing in the Challenger Cup, which you can check out on Smite Game 2, broadcasted by Hinduman and Zayadin, which is a name I'm probably not pronouncing correctly. I have done commentary in the past. I commented at the launch tournament, which was really cool. And then I played on pro teams before it mattered.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I did. Before it mattered.
You played on pro teams the way
Wolfie plays on pro teams. Yeah.
Oh, shots! I actually think Wolfie could provide some help. But I mean, so let's actually talk about that. That
shit talking Wolfie, I'm down. It's actually my hobby. If you follow me on Twitter, I mostly just shit talk Wolfie.
All right, now that you got yourself plug out of the way, that's the rumor mill. It's already been shut down, but there was also something else coming out of the rumor mill this afternoon. So if we I actually tweeted a little bit about it earlier. Rumor mill. Two things came to mind with my ear to the ground. Wolfie playing for Dignitas Esports and Jerby and Sazik, a player you might have seen if you were paying attention to the Challenger role, playing for Enemy Esports. Let's touch upon the first one since Wolfie said it wasn't true. So like I said, rumor mill. Wolfie playing for Dignitas Esports. Wolfie said that it wasn't true, but the best will not be playing due to personal reasons upcoming in this next week. And it is a big game for Denial. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. Best is not able to make it for personal reasons, and because of their personal reasons, we're not going to go into them. Everyone has a right to privacy. I think the current plan that Rush tweeted out was that he's going to be playing for solo. He is an ex-solo lane player, currently operating as the Nile coach, and we'll see if he can shake the rust off, if there is any, and perform in the SPL. And then Game Hunter, as someone mentioned in chat, is actually playing a little bit But
yeah, I got really excited seeing Game Hunter. So if you guys are newer to the Smite scene, basically before the SPL started, we kind of had like it was the Wild West of Smite. There were weekly tournaments, right? It was an open bracket tournament, Saturday for North America, Sunday for Europe. Test your might, and you did good or you did bad, and that was it. And it all led up to this huge $200,000 tournament that we had last spring, I guess it was.
it was, you know
March.
what? I think Facebook sent me a message yesterday like, hey, you did this a year ago. You want to share it? And it was you and me sitting behind a desk. I think it was like a year ago.
Yep. And that was about a year ago. And Game Hunter was on what is now known as Trig Esports. That team with Kimo Fred and Lobster and Trickstank.
It's sort of like the spiritual successor of that team.
Yeah, I mean that it is the team with two different players, right? Like the team is the same. It's 4 members: Tricks, Cubo, Lobster, Zip, and they just.
Sure.
What happened was their hunter role was always a little suspect, and they sort of cemented that with Funball. And Game Hunter was the original solo winner for the team, which obviously has been replaced with by Zelia these days. But Game Hunter was probably one of the first superstars in Smite, strictly speaking, with like skill, right? Like we've always had Zapman and Lazes, right? And they have incredible skill. But they're like community figures. Game Hunter was the first dude that like the reason you know him is because he has pentakills, right?
Yeah. I mean that's like what he's about. He's really just he's the star player. I mean it was like him and Zapman are the people that you look at and you're like, the reason we like them is because they play the game real good.
Exactly. And I mean, so here's an interesting thing. Game Hunter, his ability to play was, I don't want to say he fell off, dude, but it definitely was a different world.
I think he started to lose his passion.
That's exactly what it was. And I mean, we saw that with
Nah.
We saw that with Nah. And I mean, you probably won't like me saying this, but we saw that with Zapman last season. For a small portion, I feel like he lost interest in the game, and it's been revitalized, and he's on a different level. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I feel like Zap lost interest because his attention in the lane just sort of like went down. And I watch him in the Challenger Cup now, and it's gone back up. So like maybe he got a kick in the ass. But I remember having conversations with him, and just like he wasn't really dialed in, and you see that when a player in a player.
I just threw something at you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and basically when you see something like that happen to a player like Nah, like Game Hunter, unlike Zapman, you just hope they get it back, right? Like Game Hunter is someone we want to see in the competitive scene, and I would love to see him back. He's a really cool dude. He's a really cool player, and I think we just deserve to see more of him. So maybe something will happen after the summer split, or spring split, summer split. Who knows? Or maybe he's just playing for fun, and that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, he tweeted. Let me pull up these tweets so I get it correct. But I was really excited because I was sitting at my desk at work, and I was just sort of looking at Twitter because I was actually looking at Twitter because I was sending Jeff Hinla a message about. I wanted to see if he had anything to say about his upcoming big match, which we'll talk about later. Sunday is going to be one of the biggest matches.
Did he have anything to say
season.
about being from Canada?
Yes, he said he's Canadian. But, so, Game Hunter tweeted out just randomly, let's put it this way. Game Hunter tweeted July 13th, 2014, GG to Cloud9. And then he retweeted something August 2nd. And before that, he had nothing on Twitter. So he goes, March 29th, he just says, this is 2 days ago, I'm sorry for not saying anything before now, but just to make it official, yes, I did quit Smite. But I did log in for the first time today since then. And who knows, this old hunter might start gaming a bit again. And like the response was overwhelming. He had a lot of favorites, tons of responses. And almost immediately, he just responded, just looking at all the support from everyone. It makes me want to play again. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. He had some other things to say, but basically he was like, yo, whoops, I kind of just disappeared. My bad. And he saw how much people like really just, I mean, he's one of the most celebrated people in all of Smite.
Yeah.
And I guess he was kind of just like, holy shit, they like me. They really like me. And now he's trying to, now I guess he's playing a little bit now, trying to get it back, see if it's really what he's interested in. So, definitely something to think about. Definitely something for European teams to think about. But I have to say, there was a reason he did stop playing. His interest in the game waned a bit, as we mentioned. His ability to play waned a bit, but also he was not traveling with the team. He's got some medical things, and because of that, his ability to travel with his team wasn't always on point.
And that's hard when you're one of the best teams in the league and you are expected to you're traveling for the stuff that matters.
Right, and there's even more lands now that Smite is growing.
Or boot camps. I mean, Trig is boot camping in Sweden.
Trig is boot camping in Sweden. Do they start already, Krett?
Yeah, they are boot camping for this week.
Right.
Because I guess the way Zimstar wanted to do it is he's like, okay, well, we're probably going, which is something that we'll talk about later, but we're gonna boot camp just to make sure that happens, and then and that makes a lot of sense. And then they're boot camping for the LAN, continuing off of that. So it just sort of works with the scheduling, all that stuff.
Which is actually really, 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 really
scary
to me. It's scary, and it's awesome to me because we see this all the time where SK specifically, now Fnatic, hopefully Fnatic, the organization, will support them just as much as SK did, but SK would boot camp every time before LAN. They would go to Cologne, Germany, SK Gaming's headquarters a week before the LAN for a full week and really just grind out a lot, right? But it was only once they qualified for the LAN. Building up to that, there really was none of that. Trig Esports is taking a completely different look holistically at that team. They've gone. So I mean, how have you really talked to the Trig dudes or anybody on board with Trig? I know you were talking a little bit.
I talked to Zimstar from time to time.
Yeah. Zimstar's awesome. I mean,
and Zalia posted my AMA today, which was really cool. He heard the words Nemesis solo and summoned him. If you look in your mirror and say Nemesis 3 times, Zalia shows up behind you.
It's actually really funny. So Zalia debuted Nemesis solo last week.
I think it was before that. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, that sounds more correct. Yeah, because I missed a week of casting. I was really sick. So we watched, right? And it's the first time we've seen Nemesis solo in the SPL. Now, as a caster, as a broadcaster, and an avid viewer, I also tend to
an avid viewer.
I tend to look at histories and past games and stuff. Zelia's entire page of match histories was Nemesis. Yeah. Just completely. It was hilarious. But so go back to what I was saying. Trig Esports is a new platform or a new organization in the world of esports, right? We've got Team Solo Mid and Fnatic and blah, blah, blah. Trig Esports, this is their first shot. But the thing is, they are a $1 billion brand, literally over $1 billion. They're a publicly traded company on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. So this is as if Berkshire Hathaway was yeah, we want to sponsor the Smite team. It's sort of the idea of what's going on here. And Trig is treating their players, they're treating this like sports. Trig has flirted with professional sports before. Obviously not owning a franchise because it's multi-billion dollars just in that, but sort of brokering players like Scott Boras does for the MLB or Jay-Z has expanded to, probably a better example because he does more than just sports, right? So Jay-Z doesn't own Robinson Cano, the baseball player that plays in Seattle, Washington, but he maintains contracts. He's his agent. And that's what Trig is really doing
Mhm.
for. They've done that in the past for sport, and they're approaching esports similarly. Do you know how much these people are? Do you know how much Trig Esports' Smite team is getting paid?
Yes, but I figure that's rhetorical.
I actually didn't know if you knew, because I didn't know until Zimstar said, or Zelia said on his stream, confirmed by Zimstar. Dude, these dudes make $3,000 a month. Like, that's a salary.
Yeah.
Damn. Like, and so the idea behind it is they don't scrim 24 hours a day. They like practice 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day. They have like a diet regimen. They have a exercise regimen. It's the full like not athletic, but like full.
No, I mean like athletic
mentality.
Like, it's maintaining them as a person.
Exactly. It's the idea that success is of the mind, body, spirit, right? Like, and I mean, it's working. I mean, it's working so far. They definitely are not a shoo-in to the land. They have to work for it, but this is sort of an extension, like, right? So they're paying them, like I said, $3,000 a month, which.
And it's important to remember, so $3,000 a month, 12 months, $36,000. It's important to remember that that's a salary for being on a team. And they're probably also able to pursue other things, like you're writing guides, or streaming, or YouTube, or whatever. So generally the model for esports is like multiple streams of income.
Yeah, exactly. And that's generally, like you said, that's pretty standard for esports, multiple streams of revenue. And like I said, $36,000, it's a lot for esports specifically, especially when you consider that there's multiple streams of revenue, also tournament winnings. I'm not privy, but I imagine that they go to the players. And it's like very, 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 I mean, dude, comparatively speaking, teams don't make a third of that, right? So $36,000 is what you expect to make, like, as an entry-level IT dude, like, working for the Geek Squad, right? Like, that's a regular job. You're not going to own an Aston Martin anytime soon, but you don't have to think about money if you're living intelligently, which I think is the point. That's the point. They're not trying to say, look, play esports, you are a bazillionaire. They're saying, like, look, we want you to win. We want you to take every little ounce of every second of your day should be committed to being the best Smite player you can be. So we don't want you to worry about eating. We set up a diet for you. We don't want you to worry about paying your rent. We'll pay that for you, dude. We don't want you to worry about any of that. It's all about just being good at what you can do and going into the LAN, not just the LAN, but the week that qualifies them for the LAN with a in-house LAN environment boot camp is amazing.
I think it's really cool, and you know, Trig's probably going to LAN. They've looked really good, and I think they're a safe bet to go to the LAN and be in finals. No, I think they're a safe bet for finals, but without really fully diving into LAN, it is an international event, which means NA versus EU, which means who really knows? We have no basis for comparison, aside from Worlds, where it just sort of seemed like COG was better than everybody.
Which is always the most fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really exciting because we have no idea. I mean, you can sort of like hypothesize a little bit, but who knows?
I mean, that to me is like, Krett. Cyclone Spin versus Zelia. Who's going to win?
Cyclone Spin.
Sure, I agree, but let's pretend I say Zelia. Prove it. Can't. Next. Like, it's
Cyclone
awesome.
Spin's from North America.
You're such a piece of shit. But actually, it's interesting. We were talking about the new website, right? And we're going to show stats or top 5 players or top 5 stats, right? Like, everybody hates GPM, so let's use that for example. Like,
I love GPM.
The website will show GPM. Okay. And it'll be like top 5 players, right? And I had a discussion with, I think it was Adonis. I'm not sure. I hope I'm not offending him. But the conversation was, should it be NA and EU separate or should it be together? How do you feel?
Wait, for what?
For like, if you're showing top 5 stats on anything, KDA, GPM, who cares? Like,
Separate.
you gotta separate them because so different is probably
Meta's
pushing
different.
it.
Like
Exactly.
the way they're playing the game is different. They're up against different people. Maybe so. I think if you're gonna look at stats overall, you have to look at stats that are like intrinsically relative to something else. One stat that I looked at a lot in season 1 was the Hunter GPM minus support GPM, and I think that's an interesting and undervalued stat because like
very true.
How much farm are you giving to your support, and how much farm are you giving to your hunter? So, Season 1, we all know Allied has low GPM. It's a personal problem that he is working on, and his girlfriend is very supportive. But part of that is the gap between Incon and Allied was closer than some of the other teams.
Part of that is that Allied is the second lowest hunter when it comes to creep score. His last hits are the worst in the league, second only to Hi-Rez, Hunter for upcoming stars.
Really? That's very interesting. That is very interesting. I would love to look at Incon's last hits.
Incon's last hits are kind of high, dude.
But, so, yeah. And I think that's an interesting stat to look at, because I think it was Season 1 TSM who had a very small difference, much like then Complexity had. Well, I suppose then Snipe had, where Incon and Allied and Trig and Season 1 Hunter for that wasn't Young Bay.
Young Bay?
No, it was. I think it was Young Bay. If any,
it was Young Bay.
Oh yeah, it was Smek, and then at some point it wasn't Smek.
It was SimStar. Actually, if you want to take a look at esports.smitegame.com, there is a popular article called A Closer Look, Trig Esports, and it will tell you all about the team going all the way back to American.
Wow, Ep.10, you're so smart. Who taught you to be so smart? You really take after me.
Who wrote it? Oh.
Probably Tom F. Banninger.
Oh, it's Tom F. Banninger.
I like that guy's his articles, especially the ones that Dan takes credit for. So, what team had a wide difference? I think
a heavy. Never mind.
I think it was SK Gaming Season 1. So Reels and Badger that had a very large gap between support and hunter farm. So a lot more farm going to Reels and stuff like that. Like, that's a more interesting stat. I think you can talk about that cross region, but comparing stats cross region is really difficult, and I think mostly is a playstyle thing. Like, you can use stats to differentiate the playstyle between the regions.
Yeah, like you can look at,
but it's hard.
You can look at like I said, creep score or last hits, because that's independent of the meta, right? Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you are aggressive, I don't care if you are playing assassins in the soul lane versus mages. Like, hey, last hits are last hits, dude. So,
yeah, I think looking at creep score is one of the more comparable stats cross region.
I actually hate creep score as a stat. I understand that it's relevant. I understand it.
But you hate it. Why?
I fucking hate it because it's artificial difficulty, and I mean, like, it's a much larger conversation, as in like game design and intent and et cetera, et cetera. But like in the game that we play today, creep score is definitely important. I wish, and it's not possible, I wish there was a way to show creep score with respects to how it affects your stacking items, because I think that's much more important. How fast do you stack your Devo gloves? I really like we said, Allied's GPM is very low, and there's a correlation to the fact that his creep score is very low, but at the end of the day, it's like not super huge. So I don't know. It's just an annoying stat to me that I begrudgingly understand that it has to be relevant.
Right. But let's jump back to the SPL. So going into this week, Trig's probably going to make it. Then there's the Fnatic game. That's Fnatic Dignitas, I believe.
No, it's Fnatic LC.
That's it's Fnatic LC, and then it's Trig Stars. Okay, so Fnatic LC is a game where it's like, I think that's your like 60-40 game. Like, Fnatic looks really good, they'll probably win, but London Conspiracy can take this.
London Conspiracy definitely can take it. I think that it's Fnatic's game, right? Like, it's their game to win or lose. I think that Fnatic has been the cleanest team in Europe over Trig. I think Trig might be the better team, but I think Fnatic has been cleaner.
Yeah, Fnatic is, I think, a very clean team, which is interesting because, you know, talking about late Season 1 going to the Worlds, I think you would call them the rivals of Titan, which is overall probably the cleanest team fighting team in our game.
When it comes to, like, team, Titan is definitely the team fight team. That said, I don't think they're going to win.
You don't think Fnatic is?
No, I don't think Titan is. Titan is like
they have like
team.
They have such a long shot. It's long.
Yeah, it is long like a dachshund.
Like, Ataraxia is going to have to get on a unicorn and jump over some fences, make it happen.
Stop. Oh,
get on a train and ride through some fences. Find a weird hunter build. He's gonna have to invent a hunter build, and then they can make it to land.
Yeah, I mean, Trig has to or Titan has to hope that. So mathematically, Titan has to hope that Stars beat Trig.
Yeah. Mathematically, that's a long shot.
Yeah,
it could happen. Stars has actually been playing better.
It can happen. It is not. It is not mathematically. They're not mathematically out. Theoretically, like I said, Stars has to 2-0 Trig. They have to 2-0, not win. They have to 2-0 Trig in order for Titan to be allowed there. But I mean, like, that's like saying, yeah, dude, I'm 5'11". I'm 26 years old. I might be 6 foot at some point in my life. But let's be real, dude. I'm not gonna fucking grow.
Oh yeah, I've been getting shorter every time I look. Every time someone asks me how tall I am, I get shorter.
80. That's because you're old. And
no, that's just my hairline!
No, you're shrinking, Krett. You're actually...
No, I'm 24! I'm younger than you are! You're old enough to be my father.
You are the old man from Family Guy.
Anyway,
So Titan's gonna have an uphill battle. We'll talk a little bit about Stars in a second, but Fnatic versus LC. That's Fnatic's game. It's in their court. Like I said, LC is possible, though, because LC 2-0 Dignitas last week.
So what happens when LC wins? How does LC win? Because, when you're looking at Trig, it's like Zalia went off, Funball went off.
Mm-hmm.
Yuvo helped someone else go off.
Basically, LC, it's LC is Snakeskin. Snakeskin and Suntouch setting up. Suntouch is a...
Right, so sort of the Anster effect.
Exactly.
And
Suntouch
the Anster effect
very
is a philosophical term.
Yes. And I mean, you and I understand it, so why don't you expand a little bit for it?
The Anster effect it's that thing where you make MLC Stealth look like the best mid laner in the world, but really, you're just taking all of these beautiful kills and serving them up to him on a silver platter. And yes, he does capitalize. He eats them very nicely and very eloquently. He uses the little fork at the right time and, the right knife for the situation. But it's Anster's genius that creates what Stealth does. And I think LC is a little bit similar in that it's Suntouch's prowess, which gives Arrow the ability to capitalize on those situations. Or the rest of his team.
Very well said. Exactly. Very well said. And basically, Snakeskin is this... I don't want to call him an unknown anymore because we've seen him play and people are understanding of who he is, but he's still under the radar to a lot of fans that aren't avid viewers, right? Like, Snakeskin does not get the fanfare and a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that has to do with being on a team that's 2-2. I think it's his picture. Can we pull that up on screen and show everybody his picture? Does he have a picture?
God. Yeah, let me find it. It's
he doesn't look so bad. Oh, he looks like Jimmy Neutron.
he looks like Jimmy Neutron or a
He
pencil,
is Jimmy
one or
Neutron.
the other. Yeah,
Or
one or
a
the other.
pencil. Oh man, when those pictures went live, all the image macros that came out were.
Oh my god.
It
Most of
made
them
my day.
courtesy of like Fred.
Yeah, it was
D-Fred.
D Freddy. It was D Freddy.
Yeah, mostly.
100%.
Pretty much him. Alright, there we go. That's the Wonder Snakeskin right under F.10's face. He looks like a...
But so this guy Casper, swear to God, that's his real name. I'm not making fun of him. Casper Bruning, which is Snakeskin's
That's
name.
a good name.
He's like actually mad good. He is one of the better players, holistically speaking, in Europe. It's tough to say one of the better solo laners because you're in a league with Maniac and Zell and upcoming stars, dude. They suck, but Sausage is on that team and he doesn't suck. So like,
Sausage is like pretty good,
yeah.
but I feel like he's got like the starter condition for Cyclone Spin. He's got season 1 Cyclone Spin disorder, where it's like, what is your god pool? And then he tells you, and you're like, that's not real.
It's like, yeah, well, you know what? We sat here telling Cyclone Spin your god pool isn't real, and Hunbat solo and Bastet solo are very real.
Right. And so like season 3, Sausage is gonna be like, yo, hell solo, I told you guys 3 years ago.
Yep.
Anubis solo, told you guys 2 years ago. Like, yeah, maybe
Spray
he'll grow.
is gonna come from the ashes.
Yes. And like that could happen, but I think Sausage doesn't have the right team and the right level of competitive experience to really bring it out fully yet.
Oh, 100.
That's not to say that he can't. Like, he totally can.
No, yeah.
And he can now. Like, homie could pick Hell Solo and, like, carry a game. That's totally possible. But a lot of that, I think it would be him playing very well in combination with, like, his team playing very well and his opponent making mistakes. Whereas Cyclone Spin has, like, cut out the opponent's making mistakes part. And it's really like, he plays well, his team plays well, and then the weird thing works.
And I mean, that's really like, you know, Cyclone Spin put in his work on Fat Chunks and now is on AFK, one of the best teams in the league. And that's sort of like kind of what I expect upcoming stars is what they are. And, you know, we're going to see Sausage really rise from the ashes. I don't really expect to see any of these other players on stars. Maybe, hopefully they surprise me. But so Snakeskin from London Conspiracy is definitely one of the, he's really the powder keg here, right? Like Arrow will always do Arrow stuff as long as Suntouch sets him up, and Emilzy will always be cerebral and do all the
Shaggy Shank will always be like shockingly good.
Exactly. Shaggy Shank is honestly, people compared him to Barracuda early last year because of his accuracy levels, but I think that Shaggy Shank is honestly very similar to. He's got that very European feel now that we've really seen him grow. He is very similar to Youngbay in the sense that like he's not gonna, or Snoopy rather is probably the better
Snoopy,
example,
yeah.
Where Shaggy Shank is not gonna, he's not gonna be your player of the game very often. He's not gonna be your player of the week very often, but he will always be consistent. You know what you're gonna get out of him.
And the moment you think he's like not a big deal, he's going to pull some bullshit and kill your team. The moment you underestimate him, he's always a threat.
And so going up against Fnatic, Fnatic, you know, looking at that Hunter lane, I think Reels has a better matchup against Shaggy Shank. I think that Badger and Emilzy probably cancel each other out. I think that Arrow is probably a little bit more experienced than Zeros in the mid lane. But solo lane goes to Maniac hand over fist. And I think Captain Twig is a more capable jungler than Suntouch if given the right gods. Thor and Arachne for Fnatic have been very, very, very popular and very successful. Outside of Thor and Arachne, we haven't seen them do poorly, but we haven't really seen them crush the way Thor does and Arachne does for him. So depending on god pick, we'll see how it goes. I think overall Fnatic has it. But like I said, It's entirely dependent on Suntouch and Arrow working together, coming online, and Snakeskin exploding. If these
Sure.
2.5 things happen, Krett, I think they can 2-0 Fnatic.
Well, the other thing to talk about that 2-0 is I think it talks about what the teams are doing well. I think Fnatic is a team that, when they're playing their game in terms of team fights, it's very much about, like, strategy. Like they're playing chess almost. Like, Reels wakes up every morning and reads Art of War by Sun Tzu cover to cover every day because he is a general. But when LC wins and is playing their games in team fights, I think a lot of that comes from Emilzy and his former experience as a coach. I think Emilzy, when he's on point, is a pristine player. Like, he just sort of does everything right. And when that extends to his team, which it can, you see a very cerebral and not really tactical. It's not like they're sort of like out strategizing their opponents. They're just kind of like thinking everything through and doing. But you're not seeing exactly like these like weird flanks and like perfect engages. It's just spotless.
Yeah, they've just really done what you're supposed to do correct. You know what I mean? And that's really, and I mean, I think that is a certain level of intelligence as well, because it's very easy to get ahead of yourself and sit there and be like, all right, we need to lane swap, and we need to put warriors in the mid lane and all do crazy stuff, all of which are good, but they're very situational. And a lot of times you just got to keep doing the right things correctly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, overthinking is definitely easy to do, and I think Emilzy doesn't do that. I think Emilzy does a very good job at, like, sort of balancing what he's supposed to do and what he's trying to push.
He has overthinked in the past. Like, he was one of the few people to buy Bumbas in support, which, if you think too little, is dumb, and if you think just right, is dumb, but if you think too much, it sounds really good, but it's
We're gonna share all the camps! I'm gonna get so much mana, Krett! Why would I do it?
It just doesn't... It's hard-coded not to work. But, like, two Bumbas next to each other share the bonus.
But it was a thought process that he tried in scrims and once in competition, and it didn't work, and he never did it again, and I respect that more than not doing it at all.
Yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I understand. Even if it doesn't work on paper, it might work in real life. Shouts to Anubis mid. You know what I mean?
China boys.
Anubis mid doesn't work on paper. But then what's his name?
It doesn't work on paper.
He just dies, right?
Yeah.
But then in practice, all of a sudden, oh, you have this active, you have this teammate, you have this specific ward. Okay, you can do it. Holy, you clear? Why am I dead? The turret. Named Anubis. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so things that it's a thought process for sure. And so Emilzy really just brings it out and does a lot of cool stuff. But I don't know. What's your pick for what's your pick for this game? Fnatic versus LC. Keep in mind, both teams have to. You think, are they going to 2-0?
I think the Fnatic 2-0, or at the very least 2-1, is the safe bet. Like 60-40, if I were a gambling man, I'd put it on Fnatic. But LC it's very well within their grasp. They can totally win this.
Yeah.
Now the question is, will they 2-0, which causes like the weird stuff to happen, where like there's a chance at LAN. I think if they 2-0, they have a chance at LAN, but like that's harder. I think there's like a 30% chance LC will get the 2-0 that they need. But they could do that. They totally could do it, and that's sort of what I want to see. As much as I love Reels, I think LC with the 2-0 is a very good story.
I would love to see LC with the 2-0. I would love to see LC with 2-0. Adonis right there, as we said. So Adonis and I have really worked a lot. Like I said, I work at Hi-Rez these days. I'm a little more than just flirting with it. And a lot of my work recently has been doing tiebreaker scenarios. Yeah. Me, myself, Adonis, Hi-Rez Dan, and Scott Gandhi has really paved the way. Gandhi has like so much experience in just like drawing up brackets. He's just to put it in perspective, like what the Hi-Rez like is like. at any point in time, you can find Scott Gandhi with his iPod in, just scribbling on a whiteboard in a corner, just brackets and tiebreaker scenarios. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, setting up Fall Split 2017 for when Fnatic ties Team Solo mid and 3, like, just crazy scenarios that can't, like, everything's covered. Everything is covered.
Cool.
And so what Adana said is like 100% gospel. LC 100% makes it to LAN if they 2-0, as does Fnatic, which is a very similar situation to what we'll have in North America. But so, like I said, it'd be a lovely story if LC 2-0s. But I think that the amount of, like I said, they can do it. They 2-0 Dignitas, which personally I don't think is that good of a team.
Dignitas is weird. And I don't want to jump into like team analysis. I don't think that's the point of this show. But Dignitas is weird because it's a team where I think their faults really are the sort of things that you look at on paper, right? And then in practice it works, but sometimes it doesn't. Like Young Bay is kind of a quiet guy. Frostiak and Shadow Nightmare have a history of being a little bit difficult to work with, but in practice they've been doing fairly well for themselves. And I think that's really the core of what it comes down to. But, and I don't know, like, Dig has played some really good games this season. Yeah, Dig they look really good at times.
But they got 2-0.
They're sort of inconsistent. It's like when they look bad, they look like, oh.
I mean, put it this way. I think Team Dignitas is 100% the identity of Young Bay. And Young Bay has always been inconsistent. I love Young Bay. Eamon is like, I mean, he and I don't talk directly 100% of the time, but he's one of my favorite pros. I am down to say that. Sure. But he's also
one of mine too. I mean, a homie like won the launch tournament and bought Louis Vuitton belts. Like, I'm down.
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we have a connection on that level. He's a cool dude, but he's historically been inconsistent. His teams have historically been inconsistent. It's one of the reasons that he was that Team Solo mid at the time, now Trig Esports, looked elsewhere in their hunter role. And now Team Dignitas really headed by him. He's their identity of that team. And I feel like the team has really sort of absorbed that. And that's why they dropped 2-0 to LC last week. LC going into this game against Fnatic, feel confident because of that win against Team Dignitas. I think a lot of people, I think the public opinion is that Dignitas is a better team than LC, and
they're just volatile.
But I think that's the public opinion, though, that Dig is better than LC, eh?
Yeah, I think it's the public opinion that they're better than LC, but I think it's also, like, you just look at their roster, and it's really Shadow Nightmare, Frezzy, and Frostiak, and it's like, that's volatile. Right. Yeah. And can Variety and Young Bay even that out? And a lot of the time, yes, I think.
Well, I mean, I know DM Brandon doesn't think Variety's any good. I think he is below average as far as solo leaders in Europe.
But I'm talking about, like, team dynamics. And I think Variety and Young Bay are there to even out the other three players and smooth things over and make things work. And
Young Bay and Variety are very very easy people to get along with and easy people to work with, and just hey, Frostiak, stop screaming, okay? And Shadow Nightmare has made a public conscious effort to be a different person, and I applaud him. And mad
respect to him for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I super applaud him for that. Somebody that surprised me with that after regionals was Auror. Congratulations, Eager, for taking him on. So we've seen sort of that change in attitude really do well. So
Allied actually is another good example. I mean, Allied used to be
much further back,
a long time ago. Allied got banned for BM for like a week, and now he's basically a puppy. Like, the only thing he's done is one time he told someone to smell his balls. That's funny,
So, I mean, LC coming off this win against Team Dignitas, like I said, it's very, it's a volatile team, and they lost 2-0. And so, as LC, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is that LC has a Mealsy. And without a Mealsy, I think this team might be sitting there going like, we 2-0 Team Dig, we're awesome. We're so good. I'm so confident going into this game against Fnatic. Check me out, dude. Take me to Wendy's. We're going to beat Fnatic. But Emilzy is very, very cerebral, like Ionic from Team Solo Mid. And I think he's going to come into the situation and be like, look, we did very good against Team Dignitas, but the reason was because of X, Y, Z. There were a lot of reasons. And the reasons that we're going to 2-0 Fnatic are different, and we have to pay attention to those. And like I said, I think going into this solo lane matchup, Snakeskin versus Maniac, Maniac is the SPL player of the week for week 4. For good reason. Maniac
is it because
has been...
It's his facial errors.
It really is that, and the fact that he's probably the best DJ in the SPL. He's a trans
pretty
DJ.
sure he's Portuguese. I think he's from Portugal.
He's the Portuguese powerhouse.
Yes. The Portuguese powerhouse.
Dude,
Great
I've
name.
said that so many times. I love it.
Disgusting.
but so, I mean, I think Maniac, like, we sang the praises of Snakeskin. I think Maniac is fantastic. I think Maniac is going to beat the hell out of Snakeskin. And I think
Maniac
that
is really
going
good.
to be going to be the hardest point in this matchup for London Conspiracy.
At the same time, so part of what makes Maniac so good is he's like one of the premier jousters, and solo lane is the closest thing to 1v1 joust. The closest thing, especially in Europe where junglers are just like solo lane. Ugh.
I mean, like somebody put it very bluntly, and I retweeted them. It was sausage. It was sausage.
Yeah.
Solo later for upcoming stuff. Let me see if I can find it. SOZ. Solo lane is fun, right? You either fall asleep because of the Bruiser matchup, or you run from Bakasura all game. Like,
yep, it's great.
That's the European mentality of solo lane. It's like, all right, it's Ivana versus Hercules, and the jungler goes, I'm never going there, ever. Right? Like, why would you?
yeah, that's true. Like the jungler like starts the lane there. They clear 2 to 3 waves. They tuck in their solo laner, and then they dip, and they're gone. They're all fucking the rest of the map. What I did there.
Yeah, and I mean like that. So it really is 1v1 joust, especially when you're Maniac. And so here's an interesting stat point, which I will regurgitate on broadcast, so you'll hear it a second time if you're watching the show. But what was Maniac known most for last year? Like when he first came into the scene?
His beard.
Playstyle wise.
Anna?
You're disgusting. No. Healers. Cho'Gath.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
That was like his thing. It was just healers. It was Cho'Gath, Aphrodite. You want to know something? And like he was one of the best Cho'Gath and Aphrodites in the world. You want to know an interesting stat? He hasn't played a mage all season. It's the meta. I get it. Yeah, but like that's what he's good at.
Following the meta?
He's good at playing healers.
I think he's good at following the meta.
Healers, and he's just killing it.
I think Maniac is a solo laner that is good at identifying and following the meta and just doing that. We use the term role player a lot, and that's not quite right. I want to alter it to like meta player for this case. And I think Divios is someone who does this as well. Except
I think Divios
he puts his own.
Way.
It's his meta.
Yeah, Divios is like Twin Peaks. That is a reference that's going to be lost on so many people. Divios is like the Truman Show, where he exists in his own little world. And
honestly, that's just C9 TSM. They're unique. And so let's jump over to NA, and I want to get to that, but I also want to talk about. So Denial has this like Hail Mary.
I'm not done. Fnatic.
Enough about Fnatic. I know you're in love with Reels. I know you're in love with him.
Fnatic is going to 2 OLC. It's going to happen as long as Reels doesn't pick Cupid.
All right.
As long as Reels.
Now can we go to NA?
Yeah. I mean, basically. So guys, the match to watch. I do want to give this out to the people at home. The match to watch by far for Europe this week. We've got three. Oh shit. Kevin, you broke the website, and I can't pretend to know the schedule. But basically, Thursday is, I was going to mention all the games. We have Trig versus Stars on Saturday, and I forget who plays on Sunday, but Thursday is the real important game. It's going to be London Conspiracy versus Fnatic. London Conspiracy needs to 2-0 in order to go to LAN. If London Conspiracy 2-0's Fnatic, barring an incredulous, weird assortment of wins and losses, including Stars 2-0ing Trig, 2-0 from London Conspiracy will head them to LAN. Fnatic, all they have to do is win. If London Conspiracy wins a single game and Fnatic wins the series with 2, so Fnatic goes 2, LC goes 1, Fnatic still goes to LAN and London Conspiracy doesn't. So it's more difficult for LC to take this on. And I think that while London Conspiracy could win 1, I don't see them winning 2 against the team Fnatic.
So you think that
has
Fnatic is going to go to LAN, really is the goal?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's about 70 to 75% chance there.
Yeah.
But LC can take the 2-0, that's a possibility, and it would be a cool story to see. And then Trig, let's be real, they're going.
Yeah,
they're probably going.
Yeah, I expect it to be Fnatic and Trig. That's definitely where my money's on. But
it's a safe bet.
Yeah, so that's Europe. Moving over into the North American side of things, as you said, we have this is where the marquee matchup is. I will be very excited to watch Thursday's game, but I tweeted out, I'm not sure if I want to cast on Sunday. Because Sunday, Cloud9 versus AFK, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to control my excitement.
I think that's going to be a good game.
So really, is that
I'll tell you why.
How did you react to the year 2000? Everybody was like, "Oh my god, the millennium!"
Let me tell you something about my father,
Sweet,
who I take after my dad a lot. And the highest praise my dad gives any food ever is, "We won't throw up after this."
You son.
That's the best thing he has ever said about any meal he's ever eaten.
Yeah, okay.
I'm very understated, so I think it'll be an okay game. And the reason why is we saw TSM versus AFK, and to me that was a disappointment.
I agree.
And I think the reason why is something that we're going to get into a little bit later, but basically TSM was ready for AFK, they did weird stuff, AFK was not ready for TSM, and boom, 2-0, done. I think TSM and C9 play a very similar game, though not the same, and this is AFK's chance for revenge by proxy.
Proxy quit a long time ago.
That kind of proxy, like Proxy 2-Rex.
Oh,
they're gonna proxy
the guy that steals all of
No, they're gonna proxy C9's waves and annoy them.
Oh, they're behind 7 proxies?
No, they're behind the tier 2 towers. In true Omega style. No, so I think it's AFK's turn to say, alright, we've seen a little bit more of your weird TSM C9 meta, and now we're gonna show that we can play against that. Now we're going to show that we know what to do and how to deal with your absurd amount of Guardians, and I'm down. I'm really excited.
I'm super
because
excited,
I think the most hyped up thing about the TSM AFK game was the solo lane matchup, right? Divios versus Cyclone Spin, and it sounds good on paper.
I had a money bet against that with Scott Gandhi.
Yeah,
that was the most hype thing.
And I don't think it was hype, because
it really wasn't.
Divios played Guardians, and Cyclone was like, well, I can't kill you because you're a Guardian.
And I mean,
I guess I'll farm, and then we can try to help, and it wasn't helpful.
I mean, that was 100% intentional.
Oh yeah, totally.
Basically, here's the thought process coming out from Divios. Everybody's playing assassins now, right? And Divios plays warriors well, and we saw Janus. We know that Divios can play mages, and I'm sure he can play assassins. Whatever the reason is, he's just like, all right, everybody's playing assassins. I don't want to. I'll just play a guardian so I don't die.
Yeah, and then I'll just set up for stealth.
Yeah,
and set up for not set up for stealth because he played Hades. Set up for Barracuda. And they did. They peeled, they engaged, they forced beads. He plays Athena, and it really worked. It's really interesting, and AFK didn't play correctly around that. Not to say they couldn't beat it, but they did not play correctly around that. So I think now is their chance to give it a second shot because, well, from what we've seen last week, Omega, Stealth, and Jeff Inla are all picking Guardian. All three of them. And then there's a Thanatos and a... So
I mean, they're doing stuff that's just so weird. What's your take on it, man?
Take on what? The Guardian?
Yeah, like the fact there's 3 Guardians. What's going on?
So yeah, I mean it's basically what I said. I misspoke earlier, conflating the two teams, but basically like when you get that many Guardians, you set up for your 1 or 2 carries, and there's so much peel and enough base damage there that you could still get your kill. You have the CC to keep everybody alive, and everyone's kind of just hard to kill.
So that's why you play Zeus.
Yeah, like Zeus, Vulcan, Shibalanki, like the hard-ass carries. Yep. Anubis, maybe not, because he's just a little bit close range. Like, you can't really stand behind the meat shields. You have to be with the meat shields. But I'm down for Anubis against it, maybe. Like, he's really popular in China because he kills tanks. And
it's
China
the
likes
amusing
tanks.
crab.
It's literally the Chinese meta.
It actually is. And I mean, you coach China.
Yeah.
So you probably have more knowledge than
they put
everybody
tanks
with the
everywhere.
exception of Narian.
And Parker probably has.
Oh yeah, Parker. Yeah, Parker is all over that. Hi-Rez Parker is.
He also tweeted pictures of him on the Great Wall, which is totally dope.
Yeah, Parker and Stu were in China very recently. They actually announced that. Side note: they announced that Xbox in China will have Smite, which, like, first of all, Xbox in China with Smite in China, like those things don't really. That's a huge deal because China is very specific about everything, which is why Hi-Rez goes to Tencent, et cetera, et cetera. So it's super cool. But so Hi-Rez Parker is like this. He works for Hi-Rez and does a lot of cool stuff, but he speaks like 20 languages. So
yeah, really smart guy. Like it's disgusting.
Yeah. So I mean, the Chinese stuff. I mean, have you kept up with the Chinese meta?
No, not
Do you
not
still
so
watch
much.
The Chinese teams.
Not so much, but like they like tanks and they like fighting, and Anubis is very good at killing tanks. That's basically what he does.
That's kind of really interesting. I mean, so.
Oh, and you want to know who did teleport solo before Divios and Omega?
Omega? Oh, before Omega? I don't know. China. Okay.
Like,
all right.
I think TSM and C9 are just taking the Chinese meta, and it's a conspiracy.
Well, see, this is so interesting. Do you think it's them looking at what China's doing and bringing it, or do you think it's just the natural growth of what's happening?
I think it's just sort of like, I think what it is we have this weird situation in NA where, and it existed with the Cogs, it basically is David Fry's fault, where we have these two teams that only scrim each other completely in a vacuum. They're both very good, and nobody knows what they're doing.
Yep.
And the result is...
That's Team Solo Mid and Cloud9.
Yes, formerly Cog Red and Cog Prime. And the result is, for example, looking at NA playoffs. Over the course of the 4 weeks between the end of the SPL and the NA playoffs, those two teams created their own meta through the entire process of, like, you have an idea, you do the thing, you find a counter, the counter like this, and, like, it all played out, and they end up with this weird, specific, strong meta going into the LAN, and, like, it was very powerful, and it was a big part of what made them win both sides of the bracket.
Yes.
And then they play, and it's weird, because, like, they're playing this different game from everyone else.
Yeah, they play very different very different meta, and I mean, like, that's sort of one of the things that make you a good MOBA team is your ability to adapt, which is why I feel that AFK is not a number one team, because I think that they are very good at playing the game that they play, but do not adapt as well as some of the other teams. And
sort of, yeah.
And yeah, that's a larger statement in a soundbite, but that sort of boiled it down. And Cloud9 and Team Solo Mid don't give people the opportunity to adapt to what they do because they do it behind unclosed.
And they've also played out the on-the-fly adaptations that you can make. Like, they've
Yeah.
played out the situations that you think might be a counter. Like, they've done that. Unless you think of something really weird after seeing their meta, they probably played it. And then eventually there become loopholes where, like, well, Omega and Divios, neither of them play this thing, so they don't practice against it. And there are some weird little problems that happen with scrim partners in general, right? Like,
I actually think scrim partners are more problematic than they aren't.
Well, that's another interesting conversation, but in some ways they're problematic. In other ways, COG sent 2 teams to Worlds. So, well, kind of 3.
Well, 3?
Kind of 3. So yeah, they sort of create this meta over the course of time, and I think going into the SPL Week 1, the C9 vs TSM game, they just started. Like, they were just figuring out their meta, and it kind of looked shitty because it was. Like, they weren't on point, and TSM and C9 players even said, like, yo, that game would have been hype at the end of the season. Because we weren't ready to show the best quality game. And then, like, the next week turned around, and we saw TSM versus AFK, and that was when, and I think it was also C9 versus Denial. No, it was C9 versus TSM. Denial versus TSM. Denial versus TSM.
Very well against TSM.
Denial beat TSM. Yeah, but then, like, after that was when we really saw, like, this weird meta shape up, where they had, like, the Guardians in the solo lane, and they were sort of playing very conservatively and safely.
Dignitas played Sobek against Denial. They just beat them. And I think and I think that goes to, and oversimplification again, Denial is sort of the antithesis of AFK.
I don't know about that.
Let me say my piece, and then let's see what you say. Because AFK comes into the game extremely practiced, all of their stuff on fleek, everything is lined up, they're good, and they don't adapt well. Denial Esports, the best logs on twice a week, see what happens. They do well. They've got a team set up, sort of, but what they do amazing, better than most teams, is that they adapt, and they are very dynamic. So they're sort of opposite in that regard, I feel, which is why they performed well against TSM, a team that has secret strategies and requires you to adapt on the fly.
I'm down with that, but I also think their secret strategies weren't completely fleshed out yet. They were still growing. They were still in the evolution phase, and I think the TSM we saw against AFK was like not 100% final form Frieza, but final form Frieza, right? Like, their strategy was done. It's ready to ship.
Ice Stone?
What?
Is that what Eevee evolves into with an Ice Stone? Frieza?
No, Frieza, like, from...
Is that one of your Animumus?
Yes, it is, actually. It's really good. You should watch it. So they sort of, like, have this meta that shows up. And they had it ready for AFK. AFK, as you said, wasn't able to adapt to it. They didn't play that matchup right, but now that AFK has had some time to think about it, they're going into a C9 who's probably doing something similar to what TSM did, and AFK has access to those games. They can watch the VODs, they know how it felt, they know what happened, and they can make the necessary adjustments, which I think is really important, and if they make it to LAN, I think that's why. Because they looked at what TSM did, they said Denial or C9's going to do something similar. We know that these players have these tendencies, and like we know that there's the Anster effect, where Anster sets up for stealth, and they will go into the game with a plan. They'll be ready, and they'll take the win if they do win.
Right.
If not, C9's just going to come in, play their game, and win, and that very well could happen. I don't think I could safely call this match. I don't know who's going to win.
No, I mean, like, so going over in Europe, what we were talking about was Fnatic versus LC is the game to watch for week number 5. It is Fnatic versus LC. If London Conspiracy beats Fnatic 2-0, they go to LAN. If Fnatic beats London Conspiracy at all, even if they drop a game and bring it to 3 games, even if it's a 2-1, Fnatic will go to LAN. Cloud9 versus AFK. whoever wins, doesn't matter if it's 2 games, doesn't matter if it's 3 games, winner goes to LAN, loser watches on Twitch. And that's it. Like, there's no...
That's the high stakes that you love, isn't it?
Dude, I love it. Fuck your double elimination, your safety net.
Double elimination, safety net, best of 2. Dude, everyone shares the prize pool at the end.
I hate it. Give me a winner.
I'm going to run a tournament where everyone plays one game. When we do a round robin, everyone plays, and then everyone gets the same payout, and they're all winners.
It'll be called Little League. But, like, Cloud9, not if TSM loses, right. I mean, no, Sunday is, that's it. C9, AFK, someone wins, someone loses. That's it. So if Thursday's European game is the game to watch for week 5, Sunday's North American game is the game to watch for the entire spring split. All right, MLB star, and you other avid viewers out there. You really want to, mathematically, sure, Cloud9 versus AFK isn't the final say. If Enemy Esports 2-0's Team Solo Mid, then it's different. But if Enemy Esports 2-0's Team Solo Mid, I will buy you a plane ticket to slap me in the face. Okay? It's just...
Wait, which one of them are you buying the plane ticket to? MLB Star?
Everyone!
I hope that's not legally binding, because you know Jerby is, like, on that shit. So, we did mention at the beginning of the show, but just to rephrase it, re-say it, Sasic and Jerby will be playing for Enemy Esports this week, so maybe a last-ditch effort. And...
Which is...
Let me tell you something about Jerby that I have learned from playing with Eager. When Jerby wants to win, he plays really fucking well.
He does, and this is actually, I forgot about this, son of a bitch. I hope I don't have to buy anybody a plane ticket, but I think realistically, even with these changes, I don't think they're going to get I don't think TSM is going to get 2-0, but it's actually very interesting. So Cloud9 versus AFK is the game to watch. The winner of that goes to LAN, unless Enemy Esports 2-0's TSM, which isn't going to happen, but Enemy Esports is totally done. Totally, they're out. They are gone. They are over. They have no chance of going to LAN, but they are a spoiler. Like I said, they can't win, but they can force somebody
like Polyjuice. Shoutouts to Polyjuice. Where Wolfie came in with his Uller solo and Moji's Fenrir ADC, and they said, no Pernicus, you will not go to the SPL.
Yeah.
And those storylines are upsetting, but they're great.
Dude, it's so much fun. So, like, right here for Enemy Esports, Jerby and Sasic, who are like, I mean, everybody knows who Jerby is, especially if you're a fan of Incontinentia, but Sasic is a player that you might not know.
Wait, did you just say that?
Yes, but Sasic is a player that has done all of the right things. They've done all of the right things. He's done all the right things. He's sort of like Snakeskin, where he's almost there, needs to learn a little bit more, and we'll see what happens, right? So, Enemy Esports is making this decision to spoil. I don't know what happened with their roster. Maybe somebody's sick, maybe somebody quit, but they could realistically just put in a sub and pick 4 assassins and have fun, right? Like, sure. But at the end of it, they are making a conscious effort to try and spoil teams, to try and spoil somebody else's success, and that's a lot of fun.
It is fun.
I like that.
I want to talk about Enemy, and I want to jump into our last topic of the show, which I find really interesting. So, let's talk about stats and context for stats. And we have this interesting situation with the SPL. Spring Split doesn't contain that many games. It has enough, and it feels good. Like, I am content with the amount of games we have. It's not really enough to really talk about anything statistically, right? Like, how many games has, I don't know, a Guardian been solo lane? Right?
Okay.
Like 4, 5, maybe 6.
It's happened a lot.
Yeah, it's happened a lot within the SPL, but is that enough to say that, like, Guardian solo overall is good? that becomes a little bit weird because you don't really have a large sample size, you just have games that matter. But the games that
Yes.
matter, like, go differently on something that's not dependent on, like, just picks, right? Like, when a team wins, it's not all the pick ban phase. The pick ban phase matters, but it's not the entire pick ban phase. And
6 games.
6 games where Guardian solo has been played?
Athena twice, Sobek once, Hades 3.
Alright. So I think it's safe to say at this point that Guardian solo is good.
Sure.
C9 and TSM seem to have proven that.
And
However...
Fnatic. Shouts to Maniac.
Yeah, and Fnatic. And, however, that's not a statistically significant number. Like, Guardian solo could have just sort of slid by. It just sort of could have worked, because you're only looking at 6 games out of, what, 30, maybe? It's like, between 20 and 30.
Yes.
And so that's weird. Because on the other hand, you have scrims and ranked. In scrims and ranked, something is played. Arachne solo lane played. I don't think we've seen that in the SPL. Maybe once or twice. The Arachne solo lane played in scrims and ranked does well. Let's say it does well. But like, do we really want to say, well, it's meta, it's good, it should be played in the SPL if it does well in scrims and ranked? No. So there's this interesting situation where it's like, what do we put numbers into? What matters more? Is it the SPL, the games that matter, and the small number of games played, or on the other hand, is it scrims and ranked, where the games are less important, but we have a much larger sample size to talk about? I think that's really difficult, especially when you go into like specific scenarios, and the one that comes up for me is Bastet.
Okay.
In North America.
All right. All right. Okay. And basically, I know where this is coming from. Bart made a tweet. Saying that Bastet sucks because the stats say that she wins.
I don't want to say Bastet sucks. I don't think his intention was to say that Bastet sucks.
Sure. I'm oversimplifying. Basically, The tweet was Bastet's win rate is really, really low. So why is she such a high priority pick? Is she overvalued? Was essentially the tweet, and I think it struck a lot of people poorly. And I see where you're going, and I'm going to agree. Because stats, but I'm going to slightly disagree. Okay? Stats are important.
Yeah, they are.
But they're important in context, and I don't think it always has to do with the small sample size you're talking about.
Yeah, totally. But it also, like, when you have something like that, I think it's the situation where you look at the stat, you're like, huh, that's weird. Then you look at the context and see if the stat explains the context explains the stat. And so, in that specific situation, Bastet has been played, I think, 4 times by Enemy Esports, which makes you look at it differently. Because then it's like, well, is Bastet something that people are willing to give to Enemy because they don't think they're very good at it? Is it something that... Is Bastet part of the factor why Enemy is getting as far as they do?
Right.
Or is Bastet just bad and Enemy Esports is overvaluing her and giving up other good picks? Or is Bastet something that Enemy Esports feels that they cannot afford to give their opponent? Right? So, like, maybe it's a situation of, like, we let Bastet through. They have to pick it. We get 2 picks. If they don't pick it, we're going to take it, and now we have Bastet. Right? So, like, maybe it's this lose-lose. It could be a variety of different situations, but either way, it seems like what's happening with Enemy Esports is, in some ways, messing with those numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the context that I'm talking that I really think about, right? So you take a look at Hercules, small sample size, right?
Sure.
Hercules has 100% win rate.
Didn't Stars play it?
No,
it's not.
Stars as of week 4, he has 100% win rate. Stars played him and lost with it, and that was the first time Hercules lost ever. I mean,
where was he played?
Solo lane and Guardian.
And support. Okay. Who played him in
So,
Guardian? That's Trig.
Trick, obviously.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Trig's, so I think we could just sort of say like, well,
this is
Trig's really good, and like,
Yeah, but like, I mean, the when you say that Hercules is 100% or close to 100% win rate, that means he's good. And small sample size, small sample size or not, he's good. Like 100, like that disparity. It doesn't matter if it's 4 games. If he's winning all 4 games, there are a lot of other contributing factors, of course, and
it's a vague good at the very least.
Of course. Stats always need a sentence before and a sentence after. You can never say Hercules. You can't say according to the stats Hercules is good. You have to say sentence 1. Hercules has been played the majority of time in the solo lane and in the Guardian role. That's because people like a tanky frontliner. He's won 100% of his games thus far. Third statement, because of this, we can say that he's good. Right?
I don't even think
that's
that third
a sandwich you need to make. And
I
the
think
third
you
statement
need
isn't really needed.
Yeah, I think you need a different third statement of like, I think requiring more context to say he's overall good. And like 100% win rate is really dramatic, but that might have just happened. Whereas like in SPL Season 1, if I remember correctly, Ullr was at like 20%. Like low win rates was like Thanatos, Ullr. Ullr is not a bad god. You just look at him and you're like, this is not a bad god. There's something going on here.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, stats within context.
Yeah.
Ullr had a low win rate. I don't think anybody on the professional level can play Ullr with the exception of Zapman and Allen. And that's for 2 different reasons.
Well, Season 1, yes, but Season 2...
I'm speaking... I'm talking about Season 1. Sorry, Bronx Bombers. Calm down. You got 16 kills and still lost the fucking game. Calm down. Season 1, Zapman uses Ullr as on her 2.0 to just level 2 jump in and kill you. And then Allied uses Ullr to avoid the lane phase completely and then just murder you in the team fight, right? Like, that's what that's about. So when you look at the low win rate, you go, yeah, it's because Ullr does 2 things. He beats you in lane by fighting you directly, or he wins the team fight because he's one of the best team fighting hunters because he can actually play like a mage in a team fight. And you look at this, you look at the map of hunters, and you go, the only 2 hunters in the league that subscribe to either one of those thought processes are Zapman and Allied. So they're going to be a small percentage of the people that play Ullr. And that's the larger conversation you have to have. And I will always, always say that is part of it. I do not like blank stats. You need a conversation. You know what it is? You know what it is, Krett?
What?
Stats are like an ugly potpourri centerpiece. It doesn't make sense unless it's in the middle of a table.
So here's the other thing. Looking at Season 1 stats, because I still have those. On her had an overall win rate of 80%. He won 12 out of his 15 games. He won his first 5 games in a row, but he was played almost exclusively in Europe. I think it was actually exclusive. Cogred played in 1 game at the end of the season. It was their last game.
GG.
And so it's just like, what's going on there? Is Anher really that good? Is it just a European thing? Like, clearly Anher's a good character, his win rate's high, but what's the situation that sets that up? And when I think especially if you're gonna like talk about Hercules, you have to also think about matchups. Maybe Quicksand is just a god with this character and it does exactly what Trig needs him to do. I think that's a good analysis. But then when you look at him in the solo lane, it's like, well, who's playing it, and are they doing it into specific matchups? I don't know. It just feels like when you have a much lower amount of games played in this season's SPL, whereas last season was like, I think it was like 60 games.
Yeah, it was lower.
You just need more sentences on. You need more in-depth stats for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you need to look at matchups and teams when you're talking about these things. So you can be like, well, Bastet does fine. She goes 3-3, but if you include enemies, she has 4 more losses. So, like, shelve that team. They're not good at Bastet, and look at these remaining stats.
So what stats? Because keep in mind, like, the sample size isn't going to get much larger. This is a 5-week set or a 5-week split. Our split, I think, next season, it's going to be longer. I don't really know how much longer. I don't think we really nailed that down, or maybe we have.
You know, how much higher can it get, right? Like, how many games could we have in a season? We're probably not going to hit 100, and even then, that's not the largest sample size. You'll have gods that are played 10 times.
So what stats are relevant in a 10-week split, right? So like 10-week split, okay? So what do we, just double the amount of games that we have. What stats are really relevant? Or is it none and they are all contextual?
Oh, no. Well, I think stats are intrinsically contextual, right? Of
course, I mean, that's my statement of all time.
Right.
Like, I always think stats are contextual, but I mean, like, even with context, like, what are the least misleading stats, I guess, is my question to you.
Least misleading stats.
Like when we say,
I think
like, win rate is pretty misleading.
I think straight up pick ban rate and early pick rate. Like, I don't know how you would turn it into a stat, but the it would have to be some sort of, like, weird index number that, like, Learboot works on in a basement to create.
It'd be a heat map.
Yeah, of, like, how picked something is. Because I think when something's picked a lot, that's indicating that teams are using it in scrims, and it's totally working. Now,
like pick rate plus, where it's a when
pick
this
rate,
god
ban
is
rate
picked.
thing, and then how early it's picked.
Yeah, like assuming there is 1 ban, 2 ban, 1, 2, 3, 4 ban, 1, 2. Assuming there's 8 slots to pick or ban something, it would be pick rate plus.
Oh, and someone did actually do this last season, as chat has mentioned me. Just Simon did that last season.
Oh,
but
okay, sweet. That's actually interesting, dude. That's interesting. You should talk to Krett, so I don't have to do the work.
It's an interesting situation, and I mean, even then, like, what's the right way to do that? You know, like, what's the right way to say the priority? But the thing is, then you also get these weird outliers, like probably Season 1 Thanatos, where Season 1 Thanatos was played as a counterpick to Thor.
Can I say it? Can I say it, Krett?
People just
didn't understand him.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's people playing differently in scrims, people being more aggressive. Maybe in scrims, Thanatos killed Thor every time, and then in SPL games it didn't happen. Or maybe it was, like, lesser teams trying to snowball in better teams. Like, there's a lot of reasoning there. But either way, Thanatos was overpicked for his win rate. And I think that speaks more about some mistake is going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, when a god's win rate is low, but their priority is high, I think it's not that the god is bad. Not necessarily that the god is overvalued, but that could happen.
Right.
But I think it's more... That's one explanation, is the god being undervalued. But the more plausible explanations are certain teams being bad with him, certain mistakes being made, or maybe, like, it is possible that it's just shitty luck. Not like luck being a thing, but like happenstance, where it's like it just so happened that Thanatos kept losing and On Her kept winning because the teams who picked them played well in other lanes. For whatever reason.
Very, very true. I think all in all, I think the summary of this conversation is really that stats should be used to open a conversation, stressed on the word conversation, and not be used to form an opinion.
The second thing is, pros scrim a lot, and they play a lot of ranked and trust their picks, and trust their lack of picks as well. Like, there are some things that sometimes we don't, like, professional players and coaches and shit miss. That happens. In Season 1, Malice was better than Titan's Bane the entire time. Nobody checked. Or Chins, throughout the majority of Season 1, people weren't building Chins on Hunters. And then, like, late in the season was like, wait a second, build Chins all the time.
Yeah.
So, every so often something's missed, but for the most part, the stuff people are doing is stuff that is heavily tested.
Very true. Very true. So the takeaway, like I said, is just stats are a beautiful start to a conversation, but make sure you finish that conversation, because otherwise you're just going to look silly. So all in all, basically, coming out for this next week, SPL is on fire. It's the last week of the Spring Split. We're going to go from the Spring Split. If you guys aren't in the know, basically what happens is this has been a 5-week split starting on March 7th. It's all coming down to now. The top 2 teams in North America and Europe will come to Atlanta, Georgia to Hi-Rez Studios and play in the Spring Split Final LAN. And that will, well, one, it will be a LAN. There'll be a lot of fun stuff. It will be a very high-res feeling event. That's all I'm going to say. It'll feel very high-res, what you want it to be, so be aware of that. But, of course, the main attraction is a Smite competition, and that'll feed directly into the Summer Split, which will be awesome as well. Thursday is one of the highest-profile games for Europe. It's going to be Fnatic versus London Conspiracy. Fnatic needs to win the set to go to LAN. London Conspiracy needs to sweep the set. They need 2-0 in order to get to LAN. Both Krett and I have said Fnatic on that one. North America is home to probably the most high-profile game of the entire goddamn season. Sunday is going to be AFK versus Cloud9. Both of these teams are like top tier. There's 2 of the most celebrated teams. Cloud9 is the team that won the World Championship, and AFK is the team that came in qualifiers looking like they could have won the World Championship. They're going to play each other. One of them's going to win and go to LAN, and the other is going to lose and watch home from Twitch. Krett, I'm going to force you. AFK, Cloud9, how many games?
How many games? 3.
Who wins?
I'm not going to call it as an analyst because I have no fucking clue.
Okay.
But from my heart, and this is tough because I love Jeff, I love Barra, I like Andy, Omega is cool, I guess, and Stealth's
LeBron
also
James
a cool guy.
Is a great friend of mine. I get it, Stephen A. Give me an answer.
I have to go with AFK.
Ooh,
because
tell me why.
Because Eager is their scrim partners. It's pride.
You're such a piece of garbage. It's actually interesting for our show. I personally have Cloud9. I think AFK is a very strong team. I just think that Cloud9, I think that MLC Stealth outclasses Kiki in the middle lane as a player. And I think that I think Cloud9 is a more cohesive team for a full match than AFK does. I think that AFK is very, very good, but has a certain shutoff point, and Cloud9 will play a 65-minute game all the way through. That said, I do think it's going to be a 3-game split. I think that there is no way that either of these teams really sweep the set. They're just too good. So Sunday, I don't know who's casting. I don't even know if I want to cast because this is going to be the most exciting matchup of the entire split. And dude, it's not even fake excitement, man. I'm not going to say we are always dude, this is just the most.
I'm excited too, Ep.10.
Shut the fuck up. I hate you so much. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks again for watching. Tune in every Tuesday, 5 p.m. EDT. For more, really, you can check out youtube.com/Kretuhtuh. Feel free to follow us both on Twitter, twitter.com/Kretuhtuh, twitter.com/FDOTNY. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week. Peace!
Peace!
Much love to you.